Hello and welcome to Divorce RX, your prescription to get you through the divorce process. My name is Vicki Townsend, and I'm the founder of the Cafe D and the mother of this brainchild, where I wanted to bring experts from all over, not only all over the divorce process itself, but I wanted to bring experts from all over the world to help you no matter where you are. And if you listen to these Divorce RX series, where you can hear from not only divorce attorneys but real estate attorneys and accountants and wealth advisors, wealth management companies, and oh gosh, mental health counselors, from marriage counselors and child psychologists, real estate agents, insurance companies, mortgage companies. There's so many things that people need to know about the process. So what I've done is I've gone out and I've brought to you some of the most amazing experts, and I'm so excited that you are with us today because we have a lovely woman all the way across the pond from London, and her name is Emma Heptonstall, and she is a former divorce lawyer, and she is called the Divorce Alchemist. She's a former lawyer, and I think they call that barrister over there, now working as a family mediator and a divorce coach. A certified MBit coach and NLP master practitioner, Emma believes that it is possible to have a good divorce. The key is good organization, planning, and recognizing that this will be emotionally more challenging than you can imagine, even if your divorce was your idea. Emma works with women to help them evaluate what it is that they want from their divorce and how to achieve it, all whilst remaining true to themselves and respecting their spouse. She was featured in Marie Claire magazine and on SheOwnsIt.com. And it is with my great pleasure today we will be talking about teacups, tantrums, and tactics, the British lawyer's guide to saving you thousands of dollars and pounds in your divorce. Thank you, Emma, so much for being with us all the way on the other side of the pond. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Vicki. It's lovely to be here.
It's going to be such a pleasure to listen to your wonderful accent as you take us through this. So tell us a little bit about what you think by the end of this our listeners will be able to take away from this process.
Well, that's a great question, Vicki. Your listeners will have an idea about how, even if they're already in the process, it's already started, they can actually take stock of where they are, look at what they need to think about, maybe go back a few steps, maybe ask themselves some further questions, and make a plan, and then implement it step by step. It really is just a process. Your divorce doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to take over the whole of your life, and it really is just something that, with a little bit of planning and a bit of emotion management, you can get through to another side and to a better life for both of you.
Fabulous. Well, one of the things that I do want to remind our listeners about is that how this community is available to you, not only through these videos that you may be watching, either you're watching it with us live or you're watching it as a recording. What we do is we've created a very private community. And in that community, we have a very private Facebook group. So you'll see that there's a link right here, right next to me, with all of the information you need to click on and join our community. It starts at $7 a month, and that gives you access. After this, you can go online with us on our Facebook group, and you can have a direct conversation with Emma. But not only Emma, there'll be other divorce attorneys back there and all of those experts I was telling you about earlier, as well as life coaches. We've got somebody back there that's an expert in reflexology to help you relax through all of this. We've got people that can teach you about meditation, how to be successful, how to get your career back on track. We've got so much for you, so I hope you will join us in membership. And know that this is a resource that's available to you 24/7. You can go back there, type in any of the names, follow any of the topics that work for you. So I want to just remind you that you can join Emma and myself on our private Facebook group after this webinar is over, and we will be there meeting you and answering your questions. So Emma, I know that you have prepared a wonderful, lovely presentation, so why don't we get started with that?
Okay, let's jump right on it. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now and upload my presentation, and hopefully you guys will be all up to see.
Perfect, perfect, perfect.
Okay, so as Vicky mentioned to you, my name is Emma Heptonstall and I live in England. I worked for 13 years as a family court specialist, helping families in relationship breakdown deal with all aspects of that, including looking at how to talk to each other, make plans for the future, resolve conflicts around finances and their children. Whilst I was doing that, I decided to train as a coach myself, and I became a master practitioner of NLP and latterly a certified MBit coach. And MBit coaching is what we call the multiple brain intelligence. And that's the idea that not only do we have intelligent thoughts in our heads, but we also have intelligent thoughts in our hearts and in our guts as well. And actually, to make a really good decision in life, we need to attune to all those three brains. So learning that, as I did, I found that helping people through their divorce became much easier coming from a coaching point of view rather than a legal one. And so I left the legal profession and trained as a family mediator, and I also work as a divorce coach for women. But fear not, gents, if you're listening this evening, there's plenty that I can share with you that is relevant to whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're at the beginning of your divorce or already partway through it. There really isn't a too late a time to just step back and actually take a look at your divorce, where you think it's going, what's working for you and what isn't working for you. And I'm hoping that during the course of my presentation this evening that you will get some light bulb moments. So I come from a place where the 3 C's are absolutely crucial. And yes, that is a 4th C, but the 3 C's that I really believe in your divorce are clarity, communication, and collaboration. And without these 3 key elements, you will notice that your divorce may take a lot longer than you thought it was going to do, may cost you an inordinate amount more money than you thought it was going to do, and you may find that emotionally you're all over the place. If you don't communicate properly, then it's going to cost you more because you're going backwards and forwards to your lawyer more often. You're getting into miscommunication with your former partner, and that in itself, as many of you probably already know, causes a lot of tension, both emotionally and financially. And without a sense of collaboration, the whole process will take a lot longer. Now, a lot of people get upset about the idea of having to collaborate in divorce, and when I talk about collaboration, I am not just talking about collaborating with your former partner, although for me, as you'll see this evening, that is a major part of it. But I'm also talking about the collaboration that you have with your lawyer. Because you really do need to find a lawyer that understands you and what you want from your divorce. So if we move in to talking about what the 3 C's are, and I mentioned a few minutes ago about clarity. Clarity is so important. I just take a moment just to ask those of you that are already in the process, when you decided to get divorced, or when somebody told you they wanted to divorce you, did you have clarity? Because I'm guessing that probably 80% of you had no clarity whatsoever. You were in fight or flight mode, which means that you battened down the hatch, you started to panic, you just went into self-protection mode, and you just started saying or doing things that you felt at the time were the best things that you could do for yourself, which is perfectly normal. We all do it in every aspect of our lives. But without that clarity, we start to make poor decisions. So that's why getting clarity at the very beginning is very important. And don't worry, if you didn't have clarity at the start and you're somewhere down the process, fear not. You've got an opportunity from tonight to go back and think, right, where am I? What clarity do I need? Is it clarity about money? Is it clarity about where I'm going to live? Is it clarity about the children, if you have them? Is it clarity about what I'm going to do with the rest of my life? Do I need to find different employment for the first time in a long time? Whatever it is for you, you need to take that step back, get that clarity in order that you can move forward, because having that is the foundation and the building blocks, if you like, of really moving your divorce forward. So it moves, I won't say the word quickly because that's not necessarily what we're talking about, but it will move a lot more smoothly, and it will mean that you feel like that you have some more control over it. Now, are you always going to be totally in control? Well, no, of course not. Because the truth is that when a couple gets divorced, there's two people getting divorced. Each of you with different ideas, each of you with different motivations, wants and needs. So knowing what your clarity is important, but also getting to know what the other person's clarity is will also save both of you time, money, and a lot of heartache.
Emma, may I interject just for a moment, and because for myself personally, I was going through I was in such a fog and in such a, because I mean, I was completely and totally shocked about mine. So when you're talking about clarity, you're talking about clarity about the end game, what we want at the end of this, not clarity around the fact whether you want a divorce or not, or whether you want to try and get back together or any of those other things. You're talking about clarity about the end of the process, correct?
I am talking about clarity at the end of the process and any other clarity that you need in between. So when you're shell-shocked, when you've been absolutely sideswiped and you don't know where it's come from, sometimes clarity can just be, what do I need right here in this moment, right now?
Got it. Okay. By the way, I'm taking notes, and I'm going to recommend that everybody else do the same, because this is great. I love the clarity around what we want, and know that and work towards that is very important. I agree 100%.
So if you've just been dealt that blow and you're thinking, goodness me, I have no idea what to do, I don't know what I've really no idea what I want, then that clarity might be just sitting with a cup of tea, putting your feet up. You might have your dog or your cat with you and just being with the moment. That might be the only clarity that you can handle, and that's absolutely fine. What we're looking for is not reacting. And so that brings me on to, how do we get that clarity? And it is by just giving ourselves the space to get it. And it's going to be different for every single person, and it's going to be different depending on whether divorce is your idea or it's not. If divorce has been your idea, there's a very good chance that before you've told your partner that you want a divorce, you've already got some idea about where you might move to, what you might do, who you might tell, what your finances are like. Unless, of course, it's the heat of the moment and you've just, in the middle of an argument, said, that's it, I'm leaving, I want a divorce. Then you might not have that clarity. But once those words are spoken, and once you have clarity that you mean it, then you need to take that process forward. So my first piece of advice to all my clients is, at first, do nothing. And I mean nothing. Because it's such a massive decision, whether it's being forced upon you or whether it's yours for the making. It's going to change the whole of your life. I mean, you didn't, did you, walk down the aisle, go to the registry office, go to Vegas, wherever it was you went to get married. You didn't go there with the idea that you were going to get divorced.
True.
So, and you probably spent a fair bit of time deciding that you did want to get married. And if you didn't spend a lot of time deciding that you did want to get married, between getting between making that idea and the event actually happening, it could have been weeks, it could have been months, and in some cases it might have been a few years before you actually went and did it, because you treated it with the respect and the reverence that it deserves, because getting married is a huge decision. But so is getting divorced, but people don't behave the same way, which is interesting, you might think. They just go, well, I'm uncomfortable, I don't like this feeling, I want it to stop, so therefore I must have to do something. I must need to be getting on with something to get me out of this uncomfortable feeling because I don't like it. Which again is our fight or flight reaction, and it's completely normal. But if you allow yourself some time just to do nothing and just allow it to land in your body. And do you know what I mean by having it land in your body? You just have a knowing.
Isn't that acceptance? Would you call that acceptance?
I would, yeah. To really just feel it in your body, not just know it in your head, but sometimes it can land just like a thud right in your gut, and it can, it can be gut-wrenching. It's like you know what you know, and you know that it is what it is. And when you have that feeling, and once you're able to just be with it, that's the first step of being actually able to get some clarity. Because you're accepting it and you're not trying to fight it, and you're not saying to yourself, yeah, but maybe, what if I have a chat, maybe we'll go to counselling, maybe if I promise I don't do that thing that annoys them, they'll change their mind, maybe if I'm sweeter, maybe if I don't leave my underpants on the bedroom floor, maybe if I put the dishes in the dishwasher it'll be different. All those things that we do to bargain with ourselves in the hope that it'll be better. Once we let go of that, then we can go, right, I've got my cup of tea, this is happening, I may not like it, but I accept that it is happening. What do I want now? What is the thing that I want most out of my divorce? And we've talked about you may not know. So how do you go about finding out what it is that you want? You ask yourself the question, what's important to you? Because what's important to you means that they're your values. What's important to you are things that are really precious to you in terms of how you are with yourself, with other people, with the direction that you have for your life. So a value to you might be, it might be important that you divorce kindly. It might be important to you that you do it as kindly to your children as you possibly can. It might be that you respect each other's financial position. It could be a mixture of all those things. And it doesn't really matter what's important to you, because what's important to you is important to you, and nobody can ever challenge you on your values, because your values belong to you just as your former partner's values belong to them. So when we come and act from a place of our value point, nobody can ever tell us that we're wrong. So that gives us clarity, it gives us certainty, and it actually gives us some inner strength, because we'll say, well, it's really important that my children experience the least disruption in this divorce is humanly possible. And your partner may disagree with you on lots of other things, but it's very likely that they will share a value with that if they are being the most positive parent that they can be. And I'm not saying that's easy when you're hurt and angry, because that's a whole different webinar and that's a very different conversation. But if the two of you can consider what's important to you, you will notice that there'll be areas of overlap which will strengthen both of you through the process. Once you're clear about what's important to you, then you can begin to think about what you would like for the future. And the best place to talk about what you would like for the future and how to get there is looking at where you are right now, which can be excruciatingly painful, because the whole idea of this is to move away from the discomfort, right? You want to get out of where you are. But not knowing where you are will cost you an awful lot of money in your divorce, will also cost you emotionally, and will actually slow the process down. So you have to be able to be in a position to manage your emotions and manage the practical side of your divorce at the same time, which I'm sure for those of you who've been through the process or are partway through it will know can be really tricky. But there are things that you can do, and we'll talk about those during the course of the webinar, to actually make it better for you. So finding out where you are now, start journaling. How many of you keep a journal or have a notebook around? And you can write down whatever it is that comes into your head, because again, these are your thoughts. There is no right or wrong. There is no good and bad. There's just your thoughts. So how are you feeling? Where are you at financially? What's happening with the children? What's happening with your support networks? Are you still in the family home? Do you need to move out of it? Write it all down so you can just look at it. You don't have to have a judgment about it. You don't have to do anything with it, but just look at it, because once it's out of you and it's in black and white on paper, it becomes so much more real. And that can be really scary. There's a bit of a health warning. It is scary looking at where you are now, particularly when that's not a comfortable place. But the beauty of looking at where you are now means that you can move on to the next step, and that is, where do you want to go? So this is where you get the opportunity to say, right, well, what do I want? Given that this may not be my choice, what is the next best option for me? Do I want to stay in this house? Do I want to move? Do I want to take the children out of their current school? Am I happy to move them somewhere else? Would they be happier going somewhere else? Do I want to stay in my job? Do I want to be a stay-at-home mum? Do I want to find a new career? You get to plan whatever it is that you want, because you can never be wrong with your own thoughts, as we mentioned before. So does that make sense? It's sort of going back and just solidifying within yourself where it is you are at, where it is you want to go, and knowing those two things will give you something to hold on to when things get tricky. And they will. But it's okay not to be sure about what it is you want. And this is your invitation from me now to really play with ideas and to sit and think about it. And it might take you a couple of hours. It could take you a couple of days. It might even take you weeks or more. And it doesn't matter, because if you rush this and start making decisions that you think might make other people happy, like your parents, like the other mums at the school gate, like your boss, like your other partner for some bizarre reason, like you want to please your lawyer for some reason, you're going to find out that at some point it comes back to bite you, and you're going to start going down a road of making decisions that actually are not making you happy. Then you start putting the brakes on, then you start dragging your heels, then you start getting angry, then it starts to cost you more money because your solicitor's writing to you saying, where have you gone, why aren't you responding to this, why is this negotiation not working out, because I thought we were going down this road, now you're saying no. So the more time that you take at the beginning the clearer you will be and the stronger emotionally, because if you tap into that emotion that is you, the core of you, about what you really want, when you need to dig deep, when things are being really difficult and challenging, it's easier to survive it. So it's okay not to know, but it isn't okay to start negotiation without knowing for those reasons.
This is such, that's that piece, that this is it, this line, everybody write that down and remember this, because if you don't know what it is that you want, you can be manipulated into giving up what you haven't even thought about. And so having this clarity, this is so wonderful. Having this clarity around what you want the end game to be makes it so that your ex cannot manipulate you without your knowledge. And if you choose to give that up, then that's your issue. That's something that you've agreed to do. But not knowing what you want and then start a negotiation process with somebody that may very well know exactly what it is that they want puts you in a very dangerous negotiation space. And so I'm sorry, but this is like, of everything that I've ever heard, that was a huge aha for me.
That's great, Vicky, because it really is. And when you're in that position, if you don't know that key piece before, we all don't know what we don't know. So we go, oh, well, he's offered me this. So, oh, well, I'll just say this. And then it all just begins to unravel. But when you know in the absolute core of you what you need, what you want, and crucially, why you want it, it just strengthens your position just 1,000 times. Because if he says, well, why do you want this, rather than coming back at him or her saying, because I do, which isn't an answer, you can say, well, I looked at the figures, and actually, if I'm going to move out of the family home so that you can stay there with the children, I need X amount of dollars to be able to do that. Or, well, actually, if you're going to leave me with the children, I need X amount of dollars to be able to support them. Or the mortgage costs this much money, or the school fees are this, or, petrol for the car costs this, and this is how many tanks of petrol I need per week to take the kids to school, whatever it might be. The more knowledge you have, the better it will be for you. And if that takes you a month to get that information together, if it takes you 2 months to decide what it is, it doesn't matter. You can say to your lawyer, your attorney, I just need to put this on hold. I'll come back to you. I'm working on it. When I'm clear about what it is that I'm asking you to help me with, then when I've got that information for you and I know within myself what I need, I'll be back. So don't be afraid. And if there are those of you out there who think, oh, flipping heck, I've actually already started this process and I haven't done that, but oh my goodness, I wish I had, then do it now. If you need to phone your attorney tomorrow and just say, put the brakes on, please don't send that letter, I need some more time, I'm going to get back to you, I'll be a week, I'll be 2 weeks, do it, because it will actually save you a lot of heartache and a lot of money. And if that means that he or she has to write a letter to the other side to say, we're putting the brakes on, and that might cost you, I don't know, $150, it'll be the best $150 that you spend just to put the brakes on, to get that time. So this is when it gets a bit tricky, because once you've decided what it is that you'd like, then you have to get ready for the reality check. And this is the one thing that puts people off doing this whole process in the first place. It's like, well, if I don't think about what it is I want, and I don't look at where I am now, I don't have to get real. But not getting real in your divorce is the single most costly thing that there is out there. It's just amazing how many people will go down the process without actually realizing where they are financially. So you have to prepare yourself for that reality check. And who knows? it might be better for you than you actually think it's going to be. So if you have been a stay-at-home parent and the other parent has been going out to work, bringing in the money, you've been raising the kids, be it mom or dad, doesn't matter which, but you haven't been really that conscious of the family finances, how much things cost, you know, how much the mortgage is, how much the water and the gas and the electric, all those things cost. You have no idea about those figures, then you're going to struggle negotiating with your former partner about what it is you need, because they will have an idea. Somebody in the relationship has an idea how much the mortgage payments are. Somebody has an idea about the bills and the groceries and all those things, and how much the children cost for their various clubs and things. And if you don't know what that figure is, you are at a massive disadvantage. So you need to get that reality check, and it doesn't have to be a drama. You just have to figure out what you have and get your documents together. So if divorce is your idea, if it's something that you're thinking about and you're on this webinar because you think, I'm thinking of leaving, but I know it's really expensive and I really just want to check out how much it's going to cost, and I'm just feeling my way through, single most important thing that you need to do is to start to plan by getting your figures together. So that is finding out how much your current mortgage payments are if you own a property, or your rent if you're renting. If you're thinking of leaving because you want the children to stay in the family home, or you're thinking of leaving and taking children with you, for whatever reason, you need to start looking at the cost of property somewhere else, or the rent of somewhere, or asking someone whether you can go and stay with them and how much housekeeping they want from you to put them up. You need to start to have a picture of how much it's going to cost you before you leave. So one of the things that your lawyers will do with both of you is sit down and get those figures together. But it can feel really pressurized when you're paying for your lawyer's time and he's or she is saying, well, how much is this and how much is that and how much do you spend on this each week? So if you can go there, if you haven't already done this, already in possession of those figures, confident that you know what they are, you'll feel so much more in control, and it will save your lawyer a lot of time having to go through it with you. So if there's a possibility that your property might need to be sold, for example, you need to find out how much that property is worth. Now in the UK, what we say is that you should get 3 property valuations. Vicky, you might know, it might be the same in the States. Get 3 property valuations and decide between the two of you what you think that property is worth if you were going to sell it. Now we do this whether or not we're thinking that the property is going to be sold, because there's a value to that property. There's an equity value. That means money that's yours that doesn't belong to paying the bank back, that will get split between you when you get divorced. And you need to know what that figure is. You need to know what cash you've got in your bank. You need to know what your pensions are worth. You need to know what your life insurance policies are worth, whether you have any other types of insurances, whether you have savings accounts. You also need to know what your debts are. So people get very excited about, well, I own this and I've got this and this. It's great. Have you considered what your liabilities are? Do you know how much you've got on your credit card? Do you know what loans you've got? Some people have loans in their name that they're not even aware of, which can be scary. But spouses do this to each other. I'm not saying it's the right way to go about your business, but it's the reality. So you need to find out exactly where you're at financially. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go snooping, because there's laws against that. So don't start digging in documentation that is not readily accessible to you. And if you feel that your former partner has finances that they're hiding from you, or they're manipulating figures, then you need to get some legal advice about that. But certainly in the UK, whatever you do, don't start finding access to accounts that are none of your business. You need to take proper legal advice about those. But things that are generally in the household drawers, copies of mortgage statements, joint bank accounts, all those things, you need to spend some time getting those documents together. Now in the UK, pension statements can take about 6 to 8 weeks to come through. I don't know how it is in the States. So if you're thinking that you need to get this information together, the sooner you get going with it, the better. Because once you have that information, it then really empowers you to go back and actually look at what it is you said you wanted and what's going to be possible. So dealing with the reality can be tricky. Now, as I mentioned before, sometimes it can be great. Sometimes you can have far more money and equity in property and money in bank accounts than you ever dreamed or realised that you had. But for the majority of people, there's usually less. And that's hard. But money will only stretch so far. And if you can begin to accept the reality of your position, you can then begin to tweak what it is that you're going to ask for. So if you have a dream of moving into, say, a 4-bedroomed house, when in reality there isn't going to be the money available for you to do that, there's no point in you asking for it. Now, I'm not talking about here being a walkover. I'm talking about the cold, hard facts of the money in your relationship. So we can't magic up money if it's not there. So as much as you might want that house with that garden, if it's not possible, the best and kindest thing that you can do for yourself and your children, if you have them, is begin to accept the reality of the situation and get into that place of acceptance. And that can take you some time. Don't rush it, because it can be hard. Because if you've had a very comfortable life, and you've lived in a very beautiful home, and you haven't had to worry too much about money before, and now you realise that that's all gone, that you're going to be living in a much smaller house, in a less nice area, that your kids are going to be going to school with children they don't know, it's damned hard. And there's no shame in admitting that you struggle with that. But it's part of the clarity process. Because if you then try and negotiate from that place of anger, or that unwillingness to accept the reality of your situation and keep saying, well, I want that money, I want that money, I want that money, you're just wasting your time and more money trying to get something that just isn't there. So working on your acceptance is an active process. So it's like, okay, so I can't have that. What can I have? What will make it more acceptable to me to be able to move my life forward? And if that's focusing on, well, actually, I'm not going to be unhappy in this relationship because it has been dragging me down a while, and actually my self-esteem is at rock bottom, and actually moving to a small house is worth that sacrifice, and actually seeing my children happier because they're not hearing me and my former partner arguing, then focus on what you can do, what you can change, and begin to create your plan B. And your plan B is basically taking the reality of your finances and creating your next best dream life. And it's amazing how many people actually, when they do this process, actually really begin to love that new life, because it may be so different than the life that you've had before, but it gives you the chance to be somebody different if that's what you want, and create different value systems, create different dreams for yourself, meet new people, and the plans that can come out of that can catapult you into a whole different life that actually spending lots of time and money with a lawyer trying to fight over tidbits of money was never worth it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things that I do with clients who come from family mediation is get them to reality check the finances about what they have and what they want, because they end up threatening each other with a court process that's going to cost them more than the money that they're arguing over. So a typical one would be when they're talking about separating a house, for example, the equity in the house, the wife, for example, might say, well, I need a greater share of the equity because I need a property when we sell this house that will house me and our children. Therefore, I need more bedrooms than you do as a single man. So therefore, I want more of the equity. And so we work out what that actual cash figure is. And if it's less than £10,000, which is what, maybe $15,000, I think, something like that.
Yes.
If it's less than that, it's probably not worth your while going to court to fight about it, because the cost of fighting about $15,000 is $15,000 to $20,000.
Exactly right. Oh my gosh, that's the exact same way. You can look at some things and it seems like it's a big deal, but once you start to get into the ugly process of a lot of it, the legal fees and court costs alone can take up all of that. So be very mindful about what you're going after and how much it's going to cost to get it. Unless somebody on the other side of this conversation can be incredibly reasonable, you know, and actually look at the greater good, perhaps. You've got to be you've got to know what it's going to cost you to, you know, to go after something and put that into your spreadsheet, you know, about what you're doing.
Exactly.
And figure it out.
So creating your plan B allows you then, when you speak to your former partner or your lawyer, to say, well, I've looked at my figures, I know this is what I have, this is the things that I think that I'm entitled to, and this is what I want. And can't you see how you can show how reasonable you are being, because it's based on fact and not fantasy? Because if you start negotiating on fantasy, you're wasting so much time and money, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to be heading for a fall. Whereas if you negotiate on reality because you've seen the figures, you'll feel more confident, because you'll just say, well, look, you said that you wanted our kids to stay living in the area so they could attend that school, because we both agree it's a great school, and therefore to stay in the school catchment area, I don't know if it works the same in the States, but in the UK, to stay in this school catchment area, I need to buy a house within this X mile radius. And the cheapest property I can buy in this place is X amount of pounds, so therefore I need X from you. And that's just fact. There's no emotion in that. It's purely factual. And if you come at it from that point of view, take the emotion out of it, you make it far harder for the other side to say you're being unreasonable. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. 100%. Brilliant.
So once you've got your clarity, then you have to get into communicating what it is that you want. And we talked about knowing your figures and preparing yourself emotionally, but the big thing here is to know your reasons. And that's not getting into justification. That is just having your bigger plan together. So if you have a plan, a goal, something to aim for, and you might want to do this on a vision board, and it might be that you chat with your girlfriends or your guys down the pub, if you guys in America do that, about what it is that you want and why, but talk about it from yourself. This isn't about, well, I just want to screw them over because they've had an affair or they've hurt me or they've lied, because they may have done all those things. But getting caught up in that emotionally is going to cost you a lot of money, because you don't think rationally. Rationality just goes out the window, because we get into, well, I just want you to hurt as much as I hurt. But the clearer you can be about what you want and why you want it, then you can go to your lawyer and say, so I've looked at my grocery budget, I've looked at how much the children need. I've looked at how much my housing costs are going to be. I've worked out that I need to go back to school because I haven't worked for 5 or 6 years, and the costs of that are this. And I know that at the end of that, I'll have this qualification, but to earn really good money, it's going to take me another 6 or 7 years before I can be completely financially independent from my husband, for example. Or it might be I've been working all the time, but actually without your support as a parent, I need to drop some time from work to take more childcare responsibility on. Whatever it is, you know your reason. And then you can express that reason to your lawyer so that they can help prepare your case. So it's not just a list of, I spoke to Mrs. Smith and she said that she wants this, this, and this. There can be more conversation and negotiation about the reasons why you need what you're asking for. But it is about the ability to compromise. Is it likely that you're going to get absolutely everything that you want? It's unlikely. You might get lucky. Some people are very accommodating. Some people let their spouse have what they want because they feel guilty. They just want to put an end to it. They don't want to fight. And, you know, if you were the other side of that, that might be great for you. But most people, I would say 95% of people, have to learn the ability to compromise. And that's why getting your clarity is so important, because you know where your own line in the sand is when it comes to compromise. So when you're talking to your lawyer about what it is that you want, have your list of would be nice to haves that you're willing to compromise on, those that you're absolutely not willing to compromise on, and those that you can use to trade. Because whether we like it or not, we all trade in divorce. That's just because we're humans, and nobody likes to feel that they're giving everything. So be willing to give, and if you're willing to give, you might just get lucky and receive something that's actually very important to you, that meets your value base. You've also got to be willing to recognize that the other person has financial needs just like you. And that's hard to hear, because when we get into that scary place of fight or flight, it all becomes about us. We start thinking, you know, you might be the mum with the kids thinking, how am I going to be able to afford to support them all? You might be the guy who is leaving or has left and is thinking, well, I do need to support my kids, but actually I've got to put a roof over my own head, and actually my wife doesn't earn very much, or she's not been working and she's going back to school, so I need to pay 2 lots of housing costs. It's very scary. And if we just batten down the hatches and go, it's all about me, it's all about me, you will lose. It's as simple as that. In the courtroom, you will lose, because the court is there to look at what you both need. Ultimately, and you know, primarily it's about children if you have them, but you may not have them. But it is about what you both need and about being fair to both of you. So the court is not going to make a decision that means that somebody's living under a bridge in a cardboard box. Just not going to happen. You may feel that they deserve that, and they may well do, but it's not going to be the reality. So by having that reality check and thinking, okay, so I'm going to have to compromise. I know that my former partner needs some money. What can I offer? Where am I willing to compromise on it? And show that you're actively listening when they're telling you what it is that they want and need. And by actively listening, I mean really hearing what they're saying. And we do that by reflecting back at them what they're saying. So somebody might say to you, well, I've asked for this amount of money, or this piece of furniture, or to see the children on these days because... and they'll give you the reason, and you basically say, so what I'm hearing you say is you feel that you need this, and you feel that you want that, and this, and these are the reasons why you say it, before you get into reacting to whatever it is they're saying. Because if you just jump straight into, oh, well, no, that's a classic, no, I'm not agreeing to that, you're not having that, over my dead body, no, That's not showing that you're listening. It's just showing that you're in the fight or flight mode, that you're thinking about you. Now, I'm not saying that whatever they say you're going to agree with, because you might not. You might not agree with them at all. But until you can show them that you've heard what they're saying, they feel honoured that you've listened to them, even if you're going to disagree. And that's so powerful. Because we all just want to be heard, right? We all just want somebody to go, yeah, I hear what you're saying, even if they don't agree with us. So that brings us to the third C, which is collaboration. And divorce really is about collaboration, even though we often don't think of it and are conscious of it at the time. So we're collaborating with our lawyers, we're collaborating with each other. So collaboration is really about working together, because it takes two people to start a marriage, and it takes two people to end it, and to end it kindly, and to end it without spending an absolute fortune on it. The more that the two of you can collaborate, the easier and cheaper the whole process will be. Now, I'm not talking to you, if you're listening to this webinar and you're the victim of domestic violence, about collaborating with your former partner. I want to make that really clear. For some of you, collaboration will not be safe, and don't attempt it. You need to get your advice of your lawyer, and you can collaborate with them. That's absolutely fine. But if you're not one of the people that I've just mentioned, if your partner isn't violent towards you, manipulative to the point of you not being able to stand up for yourself, then I highly recommend that the two of you try some form of collaboration. And people often ask, is it really possible for me to collaborate? Well, it's possible for everybody to collaborate if they're willing. You have to be genuinely willing to do it, because if you're not, it won't work. And collaboration is coming from the same place, and that links back to what I was saying about clarity about your values. Because if you can tap into your values and tap into the values of your former partner and recognize the similarities and the sameness of those values, because there will be some, they won't all be the same, because nobody is. But the reason you got married in the first place is because at some level you hold similar values. Tapping into those values will bring you together. So one of the most interesting and thought-provoking exercises that I do as a mediator, and I did when I was in court, when people would be at loggerheads about children or money, is I'd say to them, okay, so each of you have 2 minutes just to tell me one thing that you appreciate or appreciated about the other person in your marriage.
Oh, boy.
Okay? I don't want to hear the bitching. I just want to hear what you appreciate or appreciated about that other person, because it's such a state changer. Because it's amazing to see the look on people's faces just tapping into a happy memory. It could have been 5 years ago, it could have been 10 years ago, hell, it could have been 30 years ago. It doesn't matter. At some point in the past, you appreciated and respected each other, and if you can just hang on to an essence of that, you can say, okay, so what was important to us? Well, it was important to us to build a family home, for example. Well, if it was important for you to build a family home, at some level, you probably still believe in the concept of a family home. So how can you, even though you're now separating and divorcing, make that work? Is it possible for one of you to stay in the family home? It may not financially be possible, and it may not be the best thing. But it's to look at, isn't it? And it's also to look at, well, if it's not financially possible because actually we need to take the money out so we can both move on, how do we do that in a way that honours both of us? Because if you can write down, and if you go to collaborative lawyers, this is what they do, they write down the principles by which you would like to divorce. And if it is to respect each other, to honour the family, to, put the best interests of your children first, whenever times get tricky, you pull out that agreement and go, well, let's just have a look at this. We wanted, didn't we, to stay true to these few values, these 3 values, whatever it is for you, we're going off track because we're getting into our own stuff. We need to step out of our own stuff because it's not about us. This is about our family and moving forward. And by doing that, by working together in that way, I'm not saying that you won't disagree about anything, because you will, because that's human nature. But by separating the people out from the principles and focusing on those principles, you can make decisions far easier because it doesn't become about you. If you have to give more money than you really hoped, it's not because you're giving it to the other person, it's because you're giving it to honour the principles that you decided. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question as we wind down, because we are coming up on the hour.
Yeah.
When you talk about collaboration, we have a process called collaborative law, and we actually have collaborative lawyers and collaborative practices where there's a divorce attorney on each side that both agree prior to everything never to go to court. And if you decide to go into court, you have to hire different lawyers.
Yeah, that's right.
One family therapist, and there's I think an accountant of some sort, or maybe a financial advisor. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you can go down the collaborative process, both in the States and in the UK we have it as well. And you can seek out collaborative lawyers if you want to. They tend to be initially more expensive, but you save money in the long run because of how they work. But you can collaborate with each other, whether you choose that process or not. You may decide that you don't want to spend those fees, but if you have some form of communication based on the clarity and a willingness to sit down in a coffee shop and go, right, what's important to us? What do we really want? Forget that we might hate each other right now. What do we both want to achieve out of this divorce that it is the same?
Lovely, lovely. Well, Emma, as we wrap up, I know this has been an amazing webinar and so filled with information. What I do want to do is I want to invite everyone now to click on the link and ask Emma the questions that you have that are on your heart about the process of divorce, about the 3 C's, about clarity and communication and collaboration, and see how maybe Emma can support you in your divorce. So at this point, Emma, thank you so much. This was so awesome. That whole thing about don't negotiate before you know what you want was an amazing, of everything that I've heard on this process, that was probably the best advice I was ever given after, of course, my divorce. But if anybody out there ever heard that and knows that that is, that was a huge one. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to ask for everybody to join us in membership and join us over at our private Facebook group, where we will be there in just a minute to answer your questions. This shouldn't take you but more than about 30 seconds, and we will see you on the other side. From the other side of the pond, Emma, thank you so much for being here today, and I so appreciate you and would love it if you would come back and join us again. And you will be back in our Facebook book group supporting our members. Is that right?
I certainly will, Vicky. It'll be my pleasure.
Thank you, my dear friend, and we'll see you in a minute on the Facebook group. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.